Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host Donna. Join me as we deep dive into real and raw conversations about love, life, money and business. Hey guys, it's Donna. Welcome to episode 5 of the podcast, Problem versus Response. So I want to ask you guys something. Have you ever had one of those moments where somebody says something to you and you can feel your blood boiling underneath the surface? Like you feel this rush of heat going over your body. You feel yourself freezing up. You just cannot believe your ears that you've heard this. And, you might find yourself over-explaining, through your response. You might find yourself apologizing for something that you didn't even need to apologize for. And then you walk away the rest of the day feeling anxious, frustrated, angry about how that went and how you could have done that better. I think we've all been there, right? And what I want to share with you guys today is a story about one of my clients who actually came to me with a very, very similar story that had happened to her. And I want to share this with you because as leaders, as business owners, it's really, really important that we know how to master our emotions in these moments. Because if you are somebody who is in a leadership position or you're in, you're running a business, there are going to be plenty of these moments. And if you have the desire or, the vision to grow your business or, to go into this higher leadership position, then you've got to expect more of these moments, which means that you have to have more emotional mastery in order to be able to deal with these things, right? So essentially what had happened was, what I quite often do is when I have my one-to-one clients, I actually buy them a little gift because, I'm a service, I'm a business consultant, mindset consultant. So when I have a client one-to-one come on board, I'll send them a gift because it's nice to have something tangible when you've just invested in something, right? And so this client of mine did the same thing. She had somebody sign on with her. She's a consultant coach. And so she also brought her client a welcome gift. And so what had happened was this client got on the phone with her in their very first session and basically turned around and said, "I didn't like your welcome gift." And her reaction at the time was, first of all, freeze, because she kind of couldn't believe her ears. And then it was to explain and apologize, right? And then she got off the phone and she actually messaged me on a couple of different forums. She messaged me and said, "I need to speak to you ASAP. This thing has happened. I don't know what to do about it," basically. And what I did is I actually said to her, first of all, I said to her, the reason why you're having such a strong response to this right now is because in the conversation that you had with this client of yours, you over-explained and apologized, where really you didn't need to, because the appropriate response to receiving a gift is thank you, considering the fact that in that moment you didn't actually have to give her a gift. Most coaches or consultants don't give gifts to their clients. This is just an added bonus, an added luxury that you and I have decided in our businesses that we choose to do. So you didn't have to do this. So what's happened in this moment is that you've actually hit anger and frustration because you felt like you deserved better, because that's what anger and frustration is about, guys. And so because she went to explaining and apologizing rather than expressing her boundary, she's now walked away from that conversation feeling frustrated and angry. There was also, as a coach and consultant herself, her job was to actually see the code in what was happening there. So rather than to take on the emotional stuff for herself and feel frustrated herself, her job there was actually to see the code of why this wasn't appropriate and then explain it to the client so the client could learn for themselves. And she said to me, "But, Donna, I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to respond. So I responded the best way that I could." And I said, "Yeah, that's fine. Of course you did. Of course you responded the best way you could. And that might have been over-explaining things. That might have been apologizing for things that you didn't need to." But I said, now that this has happened, this is a beautiful gift for you because you've experienced this now. So what it means is that next time something like this happens, and it's inevitable, it may not be this exact same scenario, but there will be another moment where you feel yourself freeze and boil up under the surface. You're going to know how to handle this because you've now handled it once before, right? So I said, this is just a beautiful gift for you to now know how to handle this thing in future. So I said to her, the next thing that I kind of want to speak to you about is the problem versus response. And she's like, "What do you mean by that?" And I said to her, well, when you said to me, I need to talk to you ASAP, I was thinking that a client was suing you, or that, a client was freaking out or something like that. Something massive was happening. And when I heard the message, it was simply that a client didn't like their gift. And I said, I don't want to take this away from you at the moment, but the level of problem, when you think about it, the client just didn't like their gift versus your level of response to that. So the Donna, I need to speak to you now, on a couple of different forums, was very, very big. And I said to her, well, actually, she responded to me and she was like, yeah, but it was a big deal to me. And I said to her, yeah, of course, I get that. And I said, on a personal level, I think it was an absolute, crappy thing for her to have done. The appropriate response is, thank you very much for the gift. You didn't have to do that. But I said, my job isn't to be your friend here. My job is to be your coach. And as your coach, what I want to share with you is that you're going to encounter more of this. You're going to have team members that frustrate you. You're going to have clients that frustrate you. You're going to encounter people along your business growth that really frustrate you or throw you a curly one. And in that instance, you cannot be reacting to that. We need to learn to get you to respond to that so that you don't spend the rest of the day feeling out of whack, feeling out of alignment, feeling frustration and feeling, anxiety for the rest of the day, because essentially what has happened is that person has just completely knocked you off your perch. You could have been having a great day. That person has said that and has completely knocked you off your perch. And what happens is if we are in control of how we allow others to affect us, but in that moment, you allowed something external to you to be the thing that affected you, which means that you couldn't have possibly been able to respond to her. You had to come from a reactionary space because you haven't yet learned to master the art of responding. And so I said to her, this is why when you sent me that message, I said to you, do not go back to her. Take a night to think about it. Because what happens is because in that moment where she was feeling reactionary, there's no logic in that. It's all pure emotion. It's all pure anxiety. It's all pure frustration. It's all, why couldn't she just be grateful for the gift, So I said to her, there's no logic. You can't actually step back and go, well, hang on. As a business professional, what is it that I need to be seeing here? What is the code behind all of this behavior? Because I said to her, your job is, remember at the end of the day as her coach, whether you feel frustrated or not about it, your job is to actually pull her up on these behavioral things. That's why she's hired you. You're not her friend. If you were her friend, you'd let it go, baby. You might let it go. But I said, as a coach, it's actually your job to pick her up on these things. But you can't do that whilst ever there's an imbalance of emotion and logic, right? So it's really, really important that when something like this happens, guys, and first of all, we notice our level of problem versus our level of response. And the reason why I can say this is because I've had plenty of these moments. I've had plenty of these moments where I've just had my blood boil under the surface. Like I cannot believe my ears. And I've had to actually take a moment to then, step back and then go, okay, yeah, what am I going to do about this? Actually, an example of this is I had a client once who... she sent me a message, like an email. So everything was going really well. She, on all of my social media forums, like I had screenshots of it, wow, thank you so much. Everything's going really well. I can't appreciate, I can't believe that, we're working together. I appreciate all the things you've done, all this sort of jazz, right? And then she had a person pull out of a contract. And when this happened, she took that upon herself. She personalized that. She made it mean she was bad, that she couldn't do this and all this sort of thing, right? And so what had happened is she sent me an email. She said, I want to cancel the contract. I'm a dark and twisty person. I prefer to stay dark and twisty. This is just who I am. I don't want to change anything, all this sort of thing. And I just sat there and I never received anything like this before. So I sat there and I was like, oh, I just couldn't believe what I was reading. And part of me just wanted to write back and be like, fine, contract's over, this is where you make the payment. Like I just wanted to, and I can't believe where this is coming from. Like that's where I wanted to come from, because in that moment, I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, literally like 2 days ago, I have a post from you saying, how much you enjoy our work together. And then you're saying you want to stay dark and twisty. And I didn't get it. It was so out of like my vortex of like, what I know to be true, right? And so I didn't respond to it straight away. I was like, okay, I need to take a breath, and I walked away for a couple of hours and I thought about it and I'm like, okay, so if you think about it from this client's perspective, Donna, and this is after I felt the emotion of it, guys. So after I had a cry, after I felt angry and, felt through the anger and the hurt of it all, I sat back and I was like, well, what is it that I need to really know about this? And I was like, if I look at this, this is the first time that this client has put themselves out there. They've had a really great response. They've had somebody sign a contract, and then they've had this person pull out. So they've personalized this thing. And when they've personalized it, they've shamed themselves and they've, chosen to believe that that means that they're not good enough, that there aren't other clients out there who would pay for their services, that this is something that's just not going to work for them. And so when I was able to look at it from that perspective, I went, right, okay, she's not on the attack with me. This has nothing to do with me. This is bringing up all of the toxic shame that is sitting there under the surface for her, right? And so, when that happened, I was able to come back from a space of responding with love, a place of like, if you want to have a chat about this, that's totally fine. If you choose that you want to end your contract, then that's cool too, It was very warm, considered, there was no panic in it, whereas if I had gone back initially, when I first read it, there was this sense of like my heart was beating fast, my whole body went, it heated up, and it wouldn't have been from that space of what's the client going through. And this kind of refers back to the first episode that I gave you guys of, separating the behavior from the person. When it comes to business, we need to be able to do that. It's a little bit different. And the disclaimer on this, guys, is like if it's a relationship, I've been in a toxic relationship before, and separating the behavior from the person was very, very helpful in that moment because it allowed me to have compassion and forgiveness, not necessarily have that person in my life, but to have that compassion and forgiveness so that I could forgive the behavior and move on with my life. The forgiveness wasn't for them, it was for me. But in business, it's actually really needed, whether it's a professional leadership job or whether you're in business for yourself, it's really, really needed to be able to separate these two things and to take a step back and get that emotion and logic in line and start to actually look, the problem, what is the size of this problem versus my response to this, and own that. Because the more that you can own that, the much better leader you're going to be, because when these things happen in future, then you're going to be able to come from a space of response that nothing external to me impacts me, because internally I am okay. I trust myself enough to know that I am okay, right? And so that allows us to come from a space of calm, compassion, love, whatever it is, learning and growth for yourself and for the other person. So guys, I trust that this has been helpful. What I invite you to do is, next time you feel like something like this happens, just notice your response to the problem. What size is the problem? Because I guarantee you, if you are in a high leadership position, or if you are in business and you have this big vision for your business, you will encounter more of this. And so it's really important that you learn to master this part of yourself. So, I think that's about it, guys. So what I'm going to do is, if you can subscribe if you've enjoyed this, join my socials in the link below. And I'd really love to see you on the socials and get to know you more and, engage with you more. And that's about it. All right. Bye for now, guys. I'll see you on the next episode.